The purpose of this video is to talk to you about a career in product design. I get a lot of questions from my mentees or from my students whether they can actually become product designers. So here's what I want to cover for you today. First, I want to talk about why become a product designer, what's the incentive for that, the evolution of different design roles and tools, and the skills that are needed to become a product designer. We're going to touch on certification, portfolio, and how to get to that job interview and actually have a design career. So let's get started. First, why would you want to be a product designer? Well, from my experience, I can say as a product designer for the last 10 years, it's an incredibly fulfilling role. It is having a direct impact on people. People are interacting constantly with technology, and having an impact on designing products that people use, you can be the voice of the people. So it's incredibly fulfilling. It allows you to exercise both your creativity and your logic, which adds to that fulfilling aspect, the ability to be creative and intuitive. Also, it's an incredibly well-paid role. In technology, you can have a very comfortable, well-paid position that allows you for a more balanced and fulfilling life as a whole. So, evolution of design roles and tools. A few years ago, the word product designer was not even in the mix. You must have heard about graphic designers, UX designers, UI designers. The industry has been progressing very, very rapidly. Nowadays, a graphic designer is somebody who's more focused on creating marketing material or, printable products, printable designs. However, when the industry didn't have a product designer yet, probably 10 or 15 years ago, it was still being defined. Graphic designers are the ones who got started, and they had to slowly evolve their roles. You must have heard of UX and UI designers. Many times there were confusions about, okay, what does a UX designer do and what does a UI designer do? So what's a product designer? It is somebody who understands a product and approaches it holistically. They're designing for the whole product from the beginning to the end. And because of that, they need to understand both UX and UI. Companies slowly realize that it doesn't make sense to just hire somebody to do the UX alone or the UI alone. But if I were to break that down for you in a very brief way, UX design, the UX process is the logical aspect, the architecture of a product. So when you're approaching a product, there's a whole process about how to do the research, how to understand the business needs, the user goals, and to slowly define the requirements of a product to create the information architecture for it. All these steps are very logical in nature. They require a certain system, a certain process. And then once you've defined that process, the next part would be the UI design, when you're more focused on creative aspects like styles, typography, aesthetics of a product. And that's the part that allows more for emotion and engagement from your users. So a product designer is somebody who understands all these aspects and is able to combine them to design a product from beginning to the end. And since I mentioned tools, in the past, graphic designers used Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator because that's all we've had. But slowly, as the industry progressed, so many tools came to light. Sketch was one of the most wonderful ones until a few years ago. And recently, it's been Figma that has become the default industry standard to be a UX designer. So a lot of evolution in this path as well. Now, what are the skills that you need to be a product designer? It's a combination of left brain and right brain, because as I mentioned, for the UX part, it's a lot of engineering, it's a lot of understanding, it's a lot of research and digging, and that requires some kind of left brain, a lot of logic. But for the creative part, which is the UI design, You need your right brain. You need that intuitive creativity. Now, what I want to say is all the skills that are needed for this role can be acquired, and that will segue us into the next part, which is the certification. So many people that I know and many people that I work with have moved from completely different careers into product design. Especially during COVID, this happened for so many people. They moved from the hospitality industry, from the travel industry to become product designers. And that happened so well for them because to be a designer, you need lots of soft skills. You need empathy, human empathy to relate to your users, to understand, to define. You also need presentation skills so you can present your ideas and defend them and advocate for your users. So these are some of the skills, but in order to understand the UX process, which is the crux that will allow you to design a very well-rounded product or software, some kind of training is necessary. And a lot of the people who've moved from other industries seem to have gone through like UX boot camps or short-term certifications like a Google design certifications. I want to say there's a lot of way to get certified nowadays, either online or in person in your local community. You can use Google or search for what's available around you. But what I would want to encourage you to do, if you're just getting started out of school, it is important that you go through a proper bachelor or a diploma in design. I highly recommend that you go through a practical program because this kind of industry is always changing, always evolving. So it is not a lot of theory that you would go through in a university. It's more practical knowledge that you need to learn hands-on. So a college diploma would be fantastic. But if you already have a university degree and you're looking at transitioning, then a shorter kind of certification or training will be more helpful for you. This leads me to talk about the portfolio. Whenever you apply for a design job, what hiring managers will be looking at is your portfolio. It's not more your resume, it's actually your portfolio. What's a portfolio? Your portfolio is a live resume that actually show the work. So I'm going to use an example here to share with you. You basically need a live website. A lot of my mentees use existing content management systems like Wix, WordPress to create their portfolio. Some of the most important information you need to include is your skills, something about yourself. The most important thing you want to do is actually showcase the projects that you're working on. So I'm going to use my own portfolio as an example here. If you go to projects, you would be able to see different projects that I've worked on. And as you grow in your career, you may need to make the content of your projects a bit more intricate. But what's important for a hiring manager is to see that you understand the UX process. That's why as we grow in our roles, we start creating UX case studies that showcase what you've worked on. Um, but your goal would be to have as many projects as you can that show real experience where you've designed something. And when you're getting started, this is the biggest challenge for a lot of my mentees. So I highly recommend that you work on something, you design something, you just want to show your understanding. You want to use either real projects or sample projects that you create for yourself so you can show the quality of your work. The interview and beyond, once you have a wonderful portfolio that allows you to stick out from the competition, hopefully you will get scheduled for that second round of interview where the team will meet you, probably give you a UX challenge, or they would want to test your knowledge live and see your personality, how you fit within the team dynamic. And what I would want to encourage you, if you reach the interview, congratulations, first of all, because that would be a huge step. The fact that you made it means you have a good, successful portfolio. In the interview, don't be afraid if you're asked to do something that you do not know. Just always do your best, especially if you're just getting started as a product designer. People don't expect you to know everything, but they want to make sure that you know the UX process and that you're able to apply it. on different products. So don't be afraid if you don't know, just show your eagerness and willingness to learn new things always. And don't be afraid to bring your full self. I would say the place that's the best fit for you is a place that actually wants to see the full you. So use that with discretion, but don't be afraid to showcase your skills, what you're good at, your eagerness and humbleness and willingness to learn and to produce the best that you can when it comes to a product. And once you get that first job, that's the most important thing. I would say that's the biggest step. It may not be your dream job, the first job, but still, it would be the first step to get you on that design career where you hope to grow. So just make sure you secure that first job where you can learn, try to learn from other team members, and slowly grow your skills where you're confident enough to apply for a next role that could be probably a better fit for you. And one thing to keep in mind as you're growing in your career, slowly look for an organization that has a proper place and progression for design roles. Uh, Unfortunately, even nowadays, this is not very well established in the industry. But as you grow, you want to make sure you're growing on the right path, whether you want to grow as a principal, individual contributor, or you want to become a design manager.